Hey, good morning, good evening,
Hey,
everybody. Mark, Tim, welcome.
Hey,
good
thank you
morning, guys.
for being here.
Awesome. You guys happy it's Friday?
Absolutely. It's great to bring the band back together. It's
I
been a
know.
while since we've done one of this.
It has. I know. The boys are back in town, huh? It's been a
Tim
little
sort
bit.
of bailed on us
I know. Tim's
for a
Tim's too
while.
big for us now, Mark. He's doing other things.
You
No.
guys have outgrown me. At first, it was live with Dan. Now it's live with Dan.
Yeah. I got tired of people living with me, so I had to change it to live.
Talk about an in-person experiment, right? Going to
That's right.
someone's house, seeing how many pieces of cereal they eat.
How much milk they put in the cereal? Do they put in the milk first and then the cereal, or the cereal? I mean, there's so many questions.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Um,
Well, I know we have an exciting show today, kind of recapping X Day. There's 5 clips from the day that I wanted to show, and then we'll show it here, and then Tim, Mark, and I will talk about each one. So that's what we want to do
mhm.
today. I know before we get into it, there's a couple of announcements that we have. I
Yep.
want to talk about TMRE. So TMRE is in San Antonio, the 14th through the 16th. I'll be there along with Jeff Hickman. And if you're going to be there, let me know. Would love to meet up. And we'll also have a conversation station that will be at in the expo hall. So feel free to stop by there and introduce yourselves. If we already know you, come by and say hi. Would love to meet up. So we'll be there. Again, that's in San Antonio, November 14th through the 16th. So if you're going to be there,
Mhm.
definitely message me. It'll be an exciting time. We are also doing a happy hour cocktail at our station one of the days as well. So
Yep.
it's some sort of margarita, I believe. There's a catchy name to it. I don't know, Mark, if you remember the name, but it's
Yeah.
something
It's
catchy.
called the Question Pro Researchita.
Oh yeah,
And
research
it's going to
eater.
be
There
a
we go.
Thanksgiving themed margarita. So it's going to be awesome.
Nice. It kind of goes into play with my dad jokes too, right? With the
It
play on
does.
words, which I love.
It
So
does.
yeah, awesome. Anything else, Mark?
No, I think we're good. I can't wait to get a lowdown on next day. So that's it with the announcements. We can get into videos.
Cool. So for those of you who don't know, X Day is Question Pro's conference that we did last week in Austin.
Mhm.
Tim was there, and Mark put a lot of heart and soul into it, but wasn't able to make it. And
Yeah,
next year, Marky, we got to get you there. But
absolutely.
it was all day session or all day conference with a number of different sessions around research, customer experience, around workforce, and then some keynotes as well, which we'll get into. So I think the first one that I wanted to share was around this is I believe, yeah, this is Jason Alliger from Traeger, and he is talking about, in this case, I'll add it
Very
here,
satisfied with the hotel.
I'll pause it for a minute. He's talking about sort of how to improve like customer experience and likelihood to recommend. So he gave an example of Magic Castle, which, if you don't know, it's a hotel in Anaheim, I believe, near Disneyland, that they do special things to help bring their, I guess, their patrons, or what do you call hotel people? Patrons, is that the right word? Or their
Yeah,
guests? There you go.
yeah, the
Searching
guess,
for the
yeah.
word there. Help bring their guests delight. So they have, one of the examples is they have this red phone by the pool, and if you call the red phone at any time, they'll bring you a popsicle with a guy in a nice suit, maybe a tuxedo, and a lid, and he'll open it up with the whole shebang. So that's what he's
Nice.
talking about here, but it's really helped increase the likelihood to recommend. And I won't spoil the punchline here. We'll play this video, and then we'll come back on and we'll talk about it.
Mhm.
There's a 60% recommendation rate, right? When they have a delightful surprise at a hotel, that number goes up to 94%. So that delta is huge, right? If you can offer a delightful surprise as a hotel, your likelihood to be recommended goes from 60% to 94%. That's just crazy. Now here's what's cool with this stat, and here's kind of why it's relevant for this group, right? That TripAdvisor analyst I think could have done what a lot of us are very tempted to do, right? This person, he or she, probably scraped hundreds of thousands of reviews and probably had a whole deep report on the whole hotel industry and what makes a good hotel and a bad hotel, whatever. But instead, they've really focused, and they use this example of the Magic Castle Hotel, and that's why we're talking about it today, right? They uncovered this great insight on delightful surprises in hotels, and then that fuels really interesting conversations for other hotel owners, and that's something that the TripAdvisor can share with people, and it's sticky and it's relevant, and it causes change. And so, if you think about us and our roles, how can we go from reporting the weather, doing these large reports, you asked all the survey questions or you looked at the data, to really just focusing in there on something. And people are very satisfied with those.
Awesome. So what I liked about that, and I'll share a few thoughts, and then I definitely want to get thoughts from Tim and Mark as well.
Mhm.
What I really liked about it is when he said, how do you go from reporting the weather in terms of meaning how do you just go from reporting on survey questions to finding those deep insights that can really help drive business. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
And then just that the likelihood to recommend if you create a delightful experience goes from 60% to 94%, I thought he said. So
Mhm. it's
it's amazing. Tim, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's really the part that I really enjoyed was him saying uh, that insight is a very small piece of the insight that they put together, I'm sure, and narrowing into what is our most important goal is delighting the customer, and how do we track that? This one data point that was inside of a ton.
Yeah.
I also like the idea of that popsicle stick being like an NPS survey.
Mm.
When you finish the popsicle, kind of like Bill Trovinger's meme of the candy breaking open. And,
Yeah.
how likely are you to recommend?
Yeah.
But I really like the idea of having all of this insight and then saying, what is the most important point? How can we track that? And why is it important to the health of our brand?
Yeah. Super, super interesting. Awesome. Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think it's also super interesting to even know what sort of insights you want to track, right? And where do you want to track them, and what could be those trigger points? For example, I mean, this popsicle thing is super simple. It's not something that takes too much effort, right? But they've thought through it just to make sure that they get the insights at the right time, so they know what's influencing the decisions ahead. So it's super interesting. I didn't know about this, but really interesting example.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting example. And Jason's whole presentation that he did was phenomenal. So I think this will be on YouTube in a little bit. So we're putting it there
Yes.
so you can watch the whole thing, including finding out why people are naming their babies Traeger, which is pretty interesting. And this is a total side note, but he had mentioned that about on average, one person a day is getting a Traeger tattoo, which I thought was a pretty high number.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
It's gotta
Even
be-
I can't wait for the video to be out on YouTube. I want to see it too now.
Yeah, you should definitely watch it. It's really super interesting. All right, let's move on to another session here. And this one was, let me see here, I'll cue it up. And then this one was around a panel that I did with a number of folks in the consumer insight space. And I want to just jump ahead a little bit here. But this is around, I asked a question, what do you wish that would change but can't change? So the whole notion of this panel was around consumer insights when change is the only constant, like all the different things that happen, whether it's market demands, economy, wars in Ukraine, all these things play a part in consumers and their insights, or consumers and their feelings. But what are those things that just won't change that you want to change? So this is, I believe, Bill speaking to that point.
Overnight, because but that's just my thought.
Yeah, that's been going on for a long time like that, right? Anything come to mind for you, Lauren?
It's hard to think about. Can you go step?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it. You gave me the opportunity. It's just the length of time projects take, both from an internal perspective, the swirl, the external with the vendor, the bouncing back and forth. And I don't have an answer. I just wish I knew a way that's, again, I understand there's the building blocks of a project that it needs to take 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks. But like, where can we start to look to cut out some of that time? Where it's, the insights are just, we're getting to the insights faster on a project basis. Again, there's some internal stuff we can do, but I think it's just one of those, having to respond saying, I'm gonna go, like, tell me what questions you have. I'm gonna go type up a doc. You're gonna respond to the doc. We're gonna bounce that around for a week, and then we're gonna go, like, how do we shorten that process and have the team, I think it's a lot of it having the team more integrated into the process and just being able to work with them and saying either they trust you to go do this, or yes, I want your feedback. I want this to be perfect. I want to answer your questions, but I also don't want to get feedback for the next 4 weeks. So that's my thing, is if we can eliminate the swirl pre-project, I would be a very happy person.
Makes sense. Anything come to mind, Stephanie?
I was just thinking about the scope creep sometimes
Oh,
that
okay.
happens. And yeah, maybe if we just take Jason's advice and focus a little bit more on each project, that might speed things up.
Got it. So focus. All right, I think with that we can wrap up the panel.
All right, so that was interesting. I like the scope creep and things. Mark, I'll let you go first here. What are your thoughts around what Bill was talking about?
Yeah, that's actually a great point. I mean, now that you think about it, right? Even when we're doing something internally, we spend a lot of time in the planning, and if there was just a way to expedite it, probably your initial hypothesis of what you thought you wanted the results to be versus what they, I mean, it's like moving the goalposts every few weeks, right? So that's super interesting. I mean, I don't know if you do that with technology or with people or with processes. Maybe you have a better idea of how that would be, but that's super interesting to have clarity of thought from the very, very start.
Yeah, I think one thing that's interesting, and I didn't honestly really think about it until Bill had mentioned it on the panel, and I had time to reflect on it, was technology, and obviously companies like Question Pro have helped with advancing a lot of things, but there's still things that have been done traditionally for a long time. Like he was saying, you get the questions, you put in a Word doc, you do this, you do that. A lot of that like pre-project stuff hasn't changed a whole lot. So it has me thinking of what are some things that we can do to help out with that, the length of time that projects take, especially when it's not the fun stuff like of setting things up and doing all these things, but it's the necessary things. So it definitely had me thinking about that. Tim, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I really like the shameless plug here, the review function we have in Question Pro, where
There you
it's
go.
basically a Google Docs that has a auditable ledger of who made what changes when, and how can we go back and forth. I do like Bill's idea of cutting through some of the noise and making sure that you meet your objectives in a timely fashion. Everyone has a different priority. If you ask me, I would never ask a demographic question again. I would have the shortest survey possible, and I would make sure that person is asked a million different surveys, micro interactions. But if you ask a researcher who has methodologies and equations and science behind what they're trying to accomplish, it's hard to marry my personal point of view from a respondent standpoint to the research goals. So I think that companies like Question Pro and others that are making sure that they can speed to insights while doing the calculations on the back end for you, I think is going to speed the entry into getting the respondents.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And I do love the plug for the review mode, because I think that's absolutely an underused feature that we have, where it really helps forego the back and forth over email and takes it into one area inside of Question Pro. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's interesting, the scope creep as well, right? Like that always tends to come up, and like someone finds out you're doing a survey and they want to keep adding to it, but it doesn't help anything, honestly. So let's shift gears a little bit here and talk about more around workforce. And this is Marcus. This is Marcus Sawyer, and then Sonia Lucina talking about empathy in the workplace and learning from others. So let's play this clip now.
Grant's work. I love that book. He highlights the importance of considering other people's perspectives, opening our eyes, not blocking out things that maybe individuals are seeing differently than us and what the value is. And for workers, not only of different races and genders, but different levels of experience, different age groups, people are seeing a lot of value in learning and how much they themselves are advancing as humans because of that. So when we think about creating these systems, when we think about creating these communities, it is something that people very much welcome and look forward to, because when they reflect on the past, it's been positive.
So just to add a few points,
Yes.
because those are big numbers, right? So 90% of people feel like they can learn from others. Now, I think a lot of the time we have these experiences of what things are going to be like in our head before they happen. But once you've had that experience of working with someone from maybe a different perspective to you, and you build that bond and you have a conversation, you actually realize, you know what, we're a lot more similar than we thought we were previously. And just to talk a little bit about what we do at EQ in the community, we provide a community based on interests and passions. And we view sports where you've got film, you've got TV, you've got crypto, you've got different areas where people connect. And finding that, I think, inside of organizations is super important, because a lot of the time people have been segregated inside of organizations. And you've got these ERGs that make up very different groups and separate groups. People are like, well, why am I not part of that group? Or why am I not part of this group? If you have an interest in something, whether it's, I don't know, it's wine or it's whiskey, whatever, people start to gather around that. And I think that's really important to think about the experiences that you've had as individuals, just meeting people from different backgrounds. And it all seems like, I mean, I'm sure all of you don't live in Austin, so you probably travel across the US and probably traveled also internationally. And some of your best experiences have probably been in restaurants that you may not make that same food at home. And that comes from a different culture. And kind of realigning that into the workplace, like, how do I get these rich experiences, and then bringing that back into your company is key. Just really putting people around passions and interests.
Interesting. Tim, I'll let you speak first here.
I loved this talk. I helped both of them put together the research that backed this. And so it's really interesting. I'm not going to give away any spoilers. You'll have to follow Sonia to get those details, or Marcus. A couple of things that I'm not sure if it was mentioned there. My brain was running a million different directions.
Yeah.
But one of the things that he says in that talk is we all win together. And I think that is just, it should be the first thing you think about. But in the workplace and everyone's different experiences, it should be top of mind if it's not. And another thing they said I really liked was the interest of the individuals over the differences. There are a crazy number of Slack conversations that I'm in that I've worked with someone for, I guess, almost 3 years now. And then I find out that they're really passionate about something that I'm super passionate about, or they hate the same things that I hate. And that can bring you together as well. And it was just a really good talk. And I'm really excited for Sonia to come out with the rest of the research. So.
Yeah, no, the research sounds interesting. And I think it's all around empathy in the workplace, right? And things like that. But to your point, Tim, I like the points around, I think we're all more alike than we are different, right? There's always, no matter who you're talking with, there's probably some commonality that you can relate to or agree. I mean, Mark, I know we have lots in common, but I know we share a common bond around our love for IPAs, right? So that's something that, it's too distinctly, we're in different parts of the world, but yet there's so much that we have in common. And I think that's super interesting. And I think it's really for people, like, don't be afraid to like approach someone and just talk to them. At the end of the day, we're all people, and just because you may be at different levels or different departments, it really doesn't matter. You can always find commonalities in different things. One of the things I wanted to ask or touch on was Kenny Thompson had a question here. 90% of people think that, they can learn from others. He's pretty, good question. What do we think about the 10% that don't think they can learn from others? What do we do about that? Initially, for me, it comes like, kind of educating and promoting more like empathy in the workplace, I think. But Mark or Tim, any thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I don't think you can impose anything on anyone. I mean, I think there's very direct benefits and values of learning from people. Um, Sometimes even very subliminally, right? I mean, you connect with people on things that are outside of your workspace, but that makes you comfortable with them. It increases your how perceptible you are to them, and so on and so forth. So, great question, Kenny. I don't know what you can do about the 10% other than trying to show them from example. But I mean, you can't really stuff anything down someone's throat. And maybe Sanya has a really good answer.
Yeah.
But
There should be a Ask Sonia. We should all mention this question to her, and she can do it as part of her series.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I kind of draw a hard line here, and I guess it's against empathy. One of the only points that I would say that is I think that 10% needs to not be in your organization.
Ooh, hot take. Tim's hot takes.
It's really, the hiring process is super hard, but I think the ability of someone to know that they might not know everything is super huge in an organization. I've personally never had a conversation with anyone at Question Pro where I haven't taken away something or learned. So I don't think the 10% that don't think they can learn from others probably should be in a one-person business and handling their own stuff. And
That's true. It's true. They should be
all work together, as Marcus said. As Marcus said, we all win together. So
yeah,
for your comment.
It's definitely true. Definitely true. Good question, Kenny. Thank you. All right, the next one here is, I was on, I think it was a CX panel. Yeah, that's it. And they did this thing, linear, lucky or lies, the stories we tell with data. There was a lightning round, and they were answering they were answering quick questions. And this one, I think, starts out where it's around, like, they said, hey, in casinos, do they put like all the, more loose slots towards the front? And that's a lie. They don't really do that, at least not at MGM. And then another question he talked about was around pumping oxygen into the casinos. And then it goes in to talk about employee experience and how that can be a factor for revenue or not. So we'll play this one here, and then we will reconvene to talk about it. Oh wait, hold on here. Wait, sorry, I queued up the wrong one, Mark. Technical difficulties here. Give me 1 second. Let's see. I think this is it. Yeah, this is it. Okay, perfect.
I'll point out one other one, because it's one of my favorites. No, the resorts in Las Vegas are not pumping oxygen into the casinos to keep you alert and awake. That's your own adrenaline. Don't play in the casinos. Oxygen is highly flammable. The place would blow up if they were doing it.
All right, let's go to the next one here. Employee experience drives revenue and profit. Sonia, this one's just for you. Carrie will ask you to jump in on this one as soon as we get that meter all the way up. Keep voting. Yeah, keep going. Terrific.
So I think revenue and profit are very different metrics. I certainly, happy employees or productive employees lead to business success. I think that's a pretty linear relationship. I think there's a big difference between revenue and profit, from that perspective. And I think, so where my head went with this is that turnover hurts profitability. That doesn't necessarily hurt revenue, but it hurts profitability because you're spending time and resources replacing people. So I do think of those a little bit differently, but I certainly think there's a relationship between happy, productive employees like we were talking about in the last panel, and their ability to create a successful business environment from a financial standpoint.
Next one.
Interesting. So employee, do they have what factor they have with revenue? And I think she had a pretty good point where she said it's kind of two different. Employee turnover obviously hurts profitability because they're having to spend time in rehiring and things. So, but I do think there's probably some relation between happy employees and revenue, especially in like a service type industry. But Mark, what are your thoughts?
I actually wholeheartedly agree with it. I think happier employees are are better aligned to the organization's vision, are better aligned to their teams, are better aligned to micro and macro factors internally, and want to contribute more, be involved more, probably stay longer, work a little harder. I know I would. I mean, if I'm somewhere where I like the people that I'm working with or I'm aligned to the vision, I'll probably be a lot more aligned uh, to do my best and see how I can contribute rather than just fill in the 9 hours or 10 hours of the day, right? So
Mhm.
I definitely agree.
Yeah, awesome. Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that employee satisfaction is a key driver. I wouldn't say of revenue, but of a company's success.
Mm.
I think just like Mark was saying, the happy employee is good for the organization. There are financial costs of not being happy. If you're not advocating for the company you're with, there's a misalignment there, and I think that there needs to have a conversation around,
Yeah.
what do you care about, and how
Mhm.
can we help you get there? Because in most organizations, if someone's unhappy, they should be able to find somewhere in the business to contribute that helps their personal goals along with the company's professional goals.
Right, right.
Yeah.
No, I think that makes a ton of sense. And let's move on here. I think there's one more short clip I wanted to play from Meg Newhouse, who was our afternoon keynote here, and she talked about kind of navigating crisis. Things are always going to come up. There's always going to be problems, but how do you deal with those? Her big thing was, the ability to breathe and like focus breathing and watch the whole session because I thought it was really good, and I think you can learn a lot from it. But here's just a short kind of clip, 20 seconds or so, around her ending her keynote with some final takeaway here. So we'll play that, and then we'll be back.
And think about just taking care of yourself and how that will feed into everything else that you learned about today and every situation that you're dealing with. Because crisis is certain, but you are in control of the way that you react to it. Thank you all for your time. Friends?
So crisis is certain, but you're in control of the way you react to it. I love that. I think it's so, problems are always going to come up. There's always going to be hurdles, but how you react to it and how you deal with it is key. So I think that's true in business and in life. So, Mark, what about you? Obviously, I think we're all going to agree on that, but
Yeah.
if you have disagreements, maybe, we should talk after this. No, I'm just joking. But
No, but I completely agree. In fact, and I didn't get a chance to watch all of the content from XDay.
yeah,
But Meg Newhouse's was one of the content pieces that I actually had the chance to watch through the whole thing because I was working on some back end content for it.
yeah.
And I think it's a very, very powerful session. I mean, there's so much that we don't talk about in our workplace or even in life as individuals to say that you shouldn't be vulnerable, you should always do the right thing. But what she very strongly says is you cut everyone else slack, but learn to cut yourself some slack because
Hmm.
how you deal with situations and it affects you but others around you also. But it was very, very interesting. That should actually be coming up live on our YouTube channel probably by Monday.
Okay.
And whoever gets the chance should definitely go and look at it. Very, very powerful session.
Yeah, it was awesome. Tim, did you get a chance to watch this one? Very
did.
next day?
I
Yeah.
did. I saw it live. It was incredible. I spoke to her after it for a couple minutes, and she was really taken aback at how many people were able to identify with, hey, we're not the things that happen to us. We are how we deal with it. One thing I practice is whenever I hear the self-talk of someone I love in just saying negative things about themselves or anything,
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell my wife, I'll say, she'll say, Ann, I'm really bad at this. And I say, don't talk about my wife like that. And it kind of puts it
I like that.
Nice. Nice.
of would you ever say that to someone else? Would you ever hold someone up to the standards that you're holding yourself up to? And if the answer is
very true,
you should probably rethink your relationship with yourself.
I like that. Don't talk to my wife like that. That's awesome. Awesome. Cool. Well, I think with that, we can wrap up the show today. All of these will be available. The full versions will be on YouTube come early next week, I'll say.
yes. Some of them already are up.
Yeah. And if you want to know when they're up, I'm sure follow Question Pro on LinkedIn, and I'm sure we'll be tweeting out. Those are two separate platforms, Dan. I'm sure we'll be, posting a message around those when they come out. So feel free to take a look at those and watch them. With that, thanks, guys. Appreciate you joining me today, and we'll wrap up the show.
All right. We'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Yes.